So you can see the legal system is a complex system of control, using words and the illusion of authority to assert dominance over a large group of people. Hi there, my name is Toby and this is part 2 of my lecture series Natural Law, and today I'm going to be talking about common law, which is really an extension of natural law, and I'm also going to be talking about the unlawful system that we find ourselves in, because now we live in a very complicated legal system, and these are all acts and statutes acting as law. It's not really law. It's very, very complicated rules and regulations, and we've got millions and millions of them. And I think most of us can agree that the state has overstepped its mark, and these rules and regulations are used pretty much to keep us under control and enslave us. And these guys are supposed to be public servants. They're supposed to be working for us, looking after us. But now it's more like we work for them, or it's really we are enslaved by them. Because if we don't give them the money they demand for any arbitrary reason, they'll lock us up. This is threats and menaces. So this is completely unlawful. It goes against the natural law and it goes against common law. And there is a movement, a sovereign movement, a movement of people that have realized that we are sovereign. And in fact, what it means is they've realized the natural law. And the natural law, as I've been talking about, in the natural law, the living conscious being is sovereign. And I should say a bit more detail. It is the living, sentient, self-aware being that is sovereign. Because as a living, self-aware being, I am a creator. I am literally a creator. I have a soul. I have a singularity of consciousness, or a singularity of ether. If you look at my other lecture series, Magical Science, I talk about this in great detail, and there's a lecture in there called Progression of the Soul. I'll leave the links below. So I talk more about the soul. But this is a bit higher than animals. You see, animals don't have self-awareness. They're not quite at the same level. So they have more like a group soul, a combined soul. So you can't call animals sovereign. It's only self-aware sentient beings that you can call sovereign, because they or we are creators. Each one of us is an individual creator, a true sovereign. And as a creator, again in natural law, if you create something, you own it. So I'm creating my own life, I own it. I'm in charge of it. I am sovereign, self-sovereign. And perhaps we need to add that on, self-sovereign, because we're not sovereign over anyone else, only over ourselves. And so because of that, we're living in a universe of other sovereigns. We have to find a way to all get along. And hence we need the natural law. And we need to try and write down the natural law in such a way that it helps us all get along. So I want to start by explaining law, but in a new way. This is completely fresh. I'm coming at this really from logic. So this is not how you would learn law traditionally. I haven't studied law, I'm not a lawyer. So this is really a discussion on philosophy and pure logic. Natural law, we should all understand it. We should all agree. Everyone. It should be that simple, because we all have to follow it. But natural law is built into us. As I said in the last lecture, the natural law is built into our very soul. And the ultimate law of creation is mathematics. The law of how the unmanifest, the ether, or the field of chi, the life force, comes into existence. It has to use mathematics, and a particular mathematics of the golden ratio. So I talked about in the last lecture. But let's look at the natural law again. In the last lecture again, I defined this as promoting life. Promote life. So the natural law, if I follow the natural law, it is to promote life. And again, if I'm doing the opposite, not following it, breaking it, I'll be promoting death. But this is quite ambiguous. This is just an attempt to sum it up, to write it down. And we could write this in other ways. We could say live and let live. We all know that. Yeah, live and let live. That is the natural law. Or we can say it in the Taoist philosophy. We could say following the Tao. If you're following the Tao, you're following the natural law. And the Tao is all about qi, the life force. Or you could call that the ether, as I do. So you could also say following the natural law is to encourage the flow of qi, the flow of energy, to create energy in life. But all of that is quite philosophical, quite ambiguous. How do we define it? How do we know if we're following it? So we've got to write this down in more detail, and that is where it becomes common law. Common law. Now, I'm talking about common law in a very universal sense. So there are different ways of looking at this. And this is just my own way. Common simply means for everyone. We've all got to do it. Okay, it means what you think it means. So how can we write this down? Well, we need to, let's write this down not in terms of so much of what it is, but what is it not? What can we not do? Well, let's say the first one, the first thing we can say you do not do is do no harm. Do no harm. So I think we can agree with that. If we're harming someone, we're promoting death, we're taking energy away from them, and we shouldn't be doing that. And this is between sovereigns. This is between creators. Okay, there's an argument here. Okay, a sovereign being should not go and extinguish the life of another sovereign being, but yet we eat meat, so we are extinguishing the lives of animals. But animals are not sovereign. There's a whole other discussion, and again, I have that discussion in another one of my lectures of magical science. I'll leave the links below to that lecture. But I think on basic principle, we can understand do no harm. At least do not initiate any harm. Okay. Number two, we can say do not steal. We can all agree with that. Yeah, do not steal. Do not take anyone else's stuff. Because if you do that, you're taking away their creation. You're taking away their energy. They have put energy into something and you've taken it away. You have, again, promoted death. You are not promoting life. You see, you've got to encourage them to create, not take it away from them. You've got to say, well done, that's a great creation. Keep on going. You're encouraging them to create. You're not cutting that down by stealing it. So we can understand that. Yeah, do not steal. And then the third one we can also say is do not cheat. So do not cheat. That means commit fraud. By deception, you steal something or you harm someone. So we can all agree with that. Yeah. Because we are thinking beings, we are conscious beings, we can have things going on in our mind. So we can use our mind before even actions to manipulate, to control, in order to do one of these first two. So I don't directly cause harm, I don't directly steal something, I use deception to do it. So it's not overtly obvious that I'm doing one or two. So really number three is just a more refined version of 1 and 2. But this means fraud, lying, breaking an agreement, going against your word, breaking a promise, you see. So I think we can all agree. There's not really anything else. These three things you could call common law. But even these three things are still quite ambiguous. Every one of these can have a dispute. See, do no harm. I can say, you hurt me. And then the other guy can say, well, no, I didn't. So now I've got to prove it. And stealing, I could say, you stole my stuff. And the other guy could say, no, I didn't. That was not your stuff. I just found it. So you've got a dispute on your hands. And the same one, cheating. You say, well, you cheated, you manipulated me. And he goes, oh, no, I didn't. I did this in true innocence. I was honest about it. Now you've got to prove it. So we've got a problem here. The problem is, how do we enforce the common law? Now, if we're living in a very, very honest society and everyone is truly living this, natural law, this is fairly straightforward because, you know, everyone is doing this, and it's so rare that anyone would break it that even they would sort of admit they've broken it. Yeah, sorry. So maybe in a very small community, the wild men living in the jungle, or, you know, thousands of years ago in a small community, maybe that, you know, this just happened all by itself. And I do believe there are times when we lived under this natural law, this common law, quite naturally, and crime was very, very low, very, very low. But again, that's a different discussion. But let's build up a legal system, or a lawful system rather, that allows us to keep track of this. So it's still part of natural law. So far, natural law, we're trying to write it down. We can't, but we're trying. So we're writing it down and we're calling it common law. So how do we prove these things? We need something called evidence. Evidence. Now, we have to have this. So far, this is all logical. So let's look at do not steal. This is the easiest one to understand. Do not steal. So if I build myself a house, because I created it, that's my house. I'm living in it. But I go away one day and come back and find someone else living in my house. They stole my house. And I say, you stole my house. And they say, well, no, I didn't. I found it. I'm living here now. So how can I prove that was my house? Well, I've got to make some evidence. I've got to write this down on a piece of paper. I've got to create some evidence. I've got to write on a piece of paper, this is my house. And I need to have a witness, or two witnesses, and they've got to see me sign this piece of paper. And ideally, I need a witness who saw me build the house. Yeah, I saw him build the house. And now that piece of paper is evidence and proof because it's got the signatures of other people on there. So then if this guy says, well, no, I found it. I said, no, here's my piece of paper proving it. Here's the piece of paper that proves this is my house. And we call that piece of paper a title. So we call this a title. But we need this. Without a title, there's no way of proving it. Now, the other one, let's go to the next one here. Now, actually, before we go to this one, you see the title, I've got to write my name on it. I need a signature. So the signature is, again, evidence of who I am. And do no harm, again, we need evidence of who I am. Because if I'm going to say, I have been hurt, you have hurt me, well, who are you? Who are you to say you've been hurt? I've got to have an identity. I've got to have a persona, some or an avatar to say, yeah, this avatar, this body has been hurt. I need to identify something. I need an evidence of who I am to say that I am hurt. So the evidence of who I am, my identity, is a signature. Sign of nature. Now you've also got an autograph, and in the legal system these are different things, but I'm looking at this very, very simply. So a signature is your sign of nature. It's just evidence of who you are, your identity. And you need to have witnesses who have seen you make that mark. You see, so this is how it builds up. So this is how we need evidence to enforce the common law. Now, do not cheat is the third one. So what we need here, do not cheat, is really breaking an agreement. We need an agreement between two individuals. So say you want to build a business and I say, I'll work Tuesdays and Wednesdays, you work Thursdays and Fridays. And okay, let's do that. But then down the line, you stop doing it. And I say, you promised to work Thursday and Friday. Yeah, no, I didn't. But you did, remember? No, I don't remember. I never promised. So you need evidence. You have to write it down on a piece of paper. I promised to do this Tuesday and Wednesday. I promised to do Thursday, Friday, whatever. And you both sign it. And you have a witness that signs that witnessed you sign it. And in the old days, you would put that in a box, lock the box with 2 keys, and each one has a key. So this is very simple cryptography. It's a method of ensuring that agreement is stored safely. So as evidence that you're not going to cheat. And we call that a contract. Contract. So now, in common law, We've got it's very, very simple. You've got to do these things, and you have very simple evidence that proves these things. Now, the next thing, of course, is that if there is a dispute, how do you settle a dispute? Now, in the old days, of course, it would just be a small community, a tribe, and the tribe would be run by the chief, the elder, and everyone respected them, and there'd be the group of the elders, and of course, any dispute would be brought to them, and they'd all discuss it and come up with a solution. But that only works if everyone is really following the natural law. Everyone is being honest. Everyone is really doing this. Now, in the absence of this happening, in a bigger and bigger system, it's harder for this to happen, and we lose track of this. So the only true, honest way of doing this is through a jury. You need a jury. And it's got to be an independent jury, a jury of your peers, people close to this community who understand what's going on. But they must be truly independent. So you have a jury of 12 men and women, and then you have to put the argument to them. And if you have a jury, of course, you need a court. But what is a court? Well, a true court of law is just a place where the jury can get together. Now, if you think about it, a court is really created by the accuser. So say I do no harm. So someone hurt me, and I say, hey, you hurt me. The other guy says, no, I didn't. I didn't. Yes, you did. No, I didn't. So I'm the one saying, you hurt me. Listen, you hurt me, and I'm going to prove it. I'm going to prove this to you, and I want to get you back. You need some punishment for that. No, I didn't. I'm the one accusing, so I need the court. I convene the court because he's broken my law, under my rule, under my self-sovereignty. So I create the court as the accuser. I call a jury. Now notice I haven't said a judge. You don't need a judge. The jury has all the power. Now you might have a judge just to oversee, just to adjudicate, like a facilitator, a chairman, but they have no power. The power is in the decision of the jury. For true natural law, there has to be independent adjudicators. And then, of course, me as the accuser have to put my story to the court, to the jury, and then of course, then the defendant has a chance to answer back. Well, if you say you didn't hurt him, tell me why. Why didn't you hurt him? And then he's got to give his story. And then ultimately the jury decides. Now, the jury is 12 men and women, but of course that leaves a hung jury. You can have a draw. I think you should really have 11 or 13, so it's an odd number. That means there's always a decision by the jury, and the judge does nothing. Otherwise, maybe the judge has the deciding vote. But so far, this is logical. This is a very simple system of law. So you can call this common law. And this is what we should have. This is really what we should have. And we do have it. In law, this is the highest form of law. This is the highest form of law. This is the law of the living man and woman. This is the natural law. This is the law of the sovereigns. But the trouble is, we have now got a legal system. We have got lower forms of law. We've got now legal. This is all getting very complicated. And this is where all this stuff is getting messed about and rewritten. And what we're following now, we're under the control of legal, not law. So let's write this again. We have the natural law, and that leads to common law, where we're trying to write it down. And remember, I mean common law in its true sense, the law for all of us. But now what we've got, so we have common law versus, and let's write it in red, we have common law versus legal system. So now what's happening, we've got to very high levels of complexity and corruption. So the natural law is now really turned into the legal system. So when you get stopped by the domestic security forces and they say you're breaking the law, you're not really breaking the law, you're breaking the legal. But they're not going to say you're breaking the legal. So what we have now is a legal system pretending to be law, but it's not law. And most of it goes exactly against the natural law. The argument for the legal system is, yeah, we need lots of different rules and regulations. And while I told you common law really is only 3 things, the legal system is like 3 to 6 million things. Nobody knows it all. And they all contradict each other. And this has been built up, as I said, through generations. Generations of controlling systems. Systems of GOVT. Right? The GOVT. Or it will be the monarchy even. Now, there is an argument that says, well, no, in the early days we wrote a constitution and we had the Magna Carta, and that was a genuine attempt to rewrite common law for us all. And the king or the state, they were public servants. They had no real power, and they were supposed to be looking after us. So there was a time when that was sort of okay, and we were doing well under it. So there is an argument for that. But there's another argument that says it was never the case. You know, as soon as we started writing down these long constitutions, blah, 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 we're already creating a legal system that is designed to control us from the very beginning. It is defining us. You see, if someone else gives you your rights, you're no longer sovereign. They've made you sovereign. So if you write anything down like this in detail, saying like the Bill of Human Rights, it's like, well, we're giving you these rights. We can say you can do that, you can do that. And I've got to say, well, hang on a second. You can't tell me what my rights are. How can you tell me? I'm sovereign. I decide what my rights are. You're not sovereign to me. So whenever anyone writes anything down like that in detail, it's a method of control. We're using language to assert dominance. You see, I pointed out at the beginning, natural law, you cannot write it down. So common law is only an attempt to write down the natural law. I'm not saying that it's definitive. Here's the difference. I'm not saying this is definitive. If there's a disagreement under common law, you hold a court and you call forth a jury and you have to listen to 2 arguments. You have to express it in more detail and they have to interpret it with intelligence. Therefore, it's not definitive. It requires a long discussion and debate because you can't write it down. It takes a long time to really try and explain what's happening. Here in the legal system, they've written it all down and they just say, you have broken the law under section 944, blah, 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 blah. Do not do this, that, what, the other. And I've got to say, well, hang on, I've got a valid reason for doing that. And I haven't hurt anyone by doing that. So you've got no right to tell me I've broken any law. Who's the victim? Who have I hurt? No, you haven't hurt anyone, but this is the law. And if you're not going to pay me this money, I'm going to put you to prison. Whoa. You can't put me to prison if I haven't broken the natural law. Now you're oppressing me. So you can see the legal system is a complex system of control, using words and the illusion of authority to assert dominance over a large group of people. And they have their own secret language, legalese. So they use words that we think we understand, but we don't understand them. They mean something else. So you've got to be very careful if you get involved with the legal system, because you don't know what they're talking about. It requires a lot of learning, a lot of research to know that. And I will leave links below to the Sovereign Project, who are doing a lot of work to explain this in detail. How to deal with the legal system and how to set yourself free. Links below to the Sovereign Project. But in what I'm talking about here is just to distinguish between the real natural law and the actual legal system that we've got going. And the legal system, you see, the reason it's been built up, it's deceptive. It's been sold to us. It's not been enforced. It's like the group of people in charge have said, okay, we're looking after you. And we'll say, yeah, okay, we put you in charge to look after us. And then they say to us, yeah, well, in order to do our job, we need to put in some more little rules and regulations. So we say, okay, fair enough. And they put in these little rules and regulations, but they put in more and more. And through generations, more and more of these rules and regulations. And these rules and regulations seem to benefit them more than us. And it's happened over time. And now it's getting to a ridiculous level. You know, we're literally all enslaved. We're enslaved to this. And it's not only the legal system. You see, corruption is really, of course, the financial system. And the financial system is really fiat currency, fake money. Fake money. Now, this requires a little digression, but we should talk about it, because why has this corruption happened? You see, there is another alternative, or ulterior motive to even creating a legal system. You see, what is the legal system? The legal system really has been designed for an activity, and that activity is this: lawfare. It's a system of power. So we know what lawfare is now, and we know it's taken for granted. We take people out. They take people out with lawfare. They don't need a conviction at the end. They just tie a person up for years and years going through the courts, and they take them out through bankruptcy. So it's that the process is the punishment. It doesn't matter, there's no conviction at the end. It's just 3-4 years, and you come out empty. You're destroyed. So this is lawfare. There should be no such thing as lawfare. How can the natural law be used to destroy someone's life? How? It cannot be used for lawfare by definition. This has got nothing to do with money. This has got to do with the first three things. This has got to do with the integrity of a sovereign. Lawfare now, by definition, is unlawful. And that's what the legal system is. And furthermore, lawfare is being applied to us in pillaging. It's pillaging. They're just pillaging us, taxing us into oblivion, squeezing us dry. Now, we've been taught to accept this because we think this is law. It's not law. This is lawfare. This is completely unlawful. And they're pillaging because, you see, a few small people are gaining all the money. We're losing everything. We're losing the assets through the fiat currency and through the legal system. So this is the reason. The reason is greed and finance. So we need to take a diversion into money. So do you remember, we were talking about evidence. So you need evidence of your identity. The evidence of your identity is your signature. The evidence of your property is your title. And the evidence of your agreement is a contract. Now this, you see, we've made a division. This is very interesting. This is the real world here. This is actually me, a living being, a sovereign being. This is a house, a real thing. This is an agreement, a discussion, something real we had. This now on this side is different. This on this side is evidence, but it is really paperwork. Paperwork. A signature, I've got to write it on a bit of paper. A title is a bit of paper. Contract has got to be signed on a bit of paper. But we need this paperwork to back up the common law as evidence. So now we can see how a lawful system is required. We have to have this paperwork. There's nothing corrupt about this. This is logical. We need this. But we need money. We do need money because agreements and property, if property, we can exchange titles. So that's an exchange of things. But we also need an intermediate medium of exchange, because sometimes we don't want a direct thing, we want something else. So we need some form of money. And that is going to be here gold. Pen's gone. Gold and silver. But let's just call it gold. Now, gold, there is something special about gold. We might just think that's arbitrary. We just chosen gold. What's that got to do with the natural law? But gold is a natural substance, and it is something special about it. There is a reason why gold is going to be involved in the natural law. You could argue that gold is desirable and useful all across the universe. So this will be a truly universal medium of exchange, even interplanetary, if you want to talk about that. And it's because it is the best conductor of electricity. It's the best conductor. It remains untarnished forever. It's extremely useful, and it's extremely desirable. It's beautiful. When you wear gold, it's very good for your energy. It attracts the energy, the life force. So there is a real universal reason why gold is part of the natural law, and this is the money of the natural law. But now think about it. Gold is the real thing, so we could exchange lumps of gold or gold coins, but we could also have a paper version of gold. So we're going to call that money. But if you think about it, a paper version of gold is really just a title. See, I've got a house. I need to prove evidence that I've got a house. I've got some gold, but I'm keeping that safe. I want evidence that I've got the gold. I write a title for the gold. Yeah, I've got one lump of gold. It's this weight. It looks like that. And now that you can call money. So money is really just paperwork, a paperwork title connecting to gold. But you've got two worlds now. You've got a paperwork world here, and you've got the real world here. There's two separate things going on. But so far, this is all okay. This still all connects to the natural law. And any disputes with any of this, all you have to do is that the accuser is the sovereign. He calls a court in his own dominion. Yeah, someone stole my money. I want to prove it. I call a court and convene a jury. So this all works so far. But of course now corruption comes in. And corruption comes in sometimes in a very obvious way. A tyrant leader, a tyrant king, and they're just, going crazy. And it's fairly obvious. And eventually the people will rise up and knock them down. And sometimes, which is what we've got now, it's a much more difficult tyranny to recognize. It's in the shadows. Now we've got a tyranny in the shadow. It's like a tyranny of a committee. They're all cowards. No one wants to put their face in front. So we don't even know who is pulling the shots now. It's a secret meetings, secret societies, secret people. Who are they? I don't know. And they're cowards, flat out cowards. No one's going to put their face to it. They have puppets. The faces we see, the names we see, the politicians we see, and we laugh at them, or we think they're idiots, or we hate them. These are just puppets. They're low-level people. The real people pulling the strings are in the shadows. So this is tricky. And they're pulling the strings through the system of lawfare, the legal system, and the money system. Now, as I said, the money system has changed from here, because now what has happened, the legal system has built up lawfare, and now the financial system comes from when we have broken this connection. There's no longer a connection between gold and paper money. So now we can just write down this piece of paper here is worth 10 pounds, all right? And it's meant to be 10 pounds of silver. So silver's part of this. But now it's not. It's not 10 pounds of silver, so it's 10 pounds of what? I don't know. It's completely abstract. So they have separated, what's happened is they've separated out this connection. So on this side now, we got lawfare because we got paperwork, and paperwork has got so complex we don't understand it. And of course, finances has come out because now we've separated money. This is now fiat, which means fake money. And on top of this, you can have interest. You can create arbitrary interest rates. You can't do an interest rate with gold, or only to a very limited degree, because you have to be able to honestly provide the gold for that interest. So you can't say, look, if you lend me, one nugget of gold, I'll give you 10 nuggets of gold back. The other guy's got to say, well, are you sure you're going to get how are you going to get 10 golds of nuggets back? Well, I'm going to go mining for them. Okay, well, now I can see the risk. But you see, now you can say, well, I'll give you 10 pounds, I'll give you £1,000 back. Well, you can, because this is nothing. You can just make some more. And that's what the banking system does. They just write it out. They just create this. And there's more to it. It's really all about credit and debt. So this is a method of enslavement, and I'm going to do another whole lecture about this in the series. But for now, you can see there's a division of the real world and the paperwork, fake world. And again, this works with how they control us, because they we have a birth certificate. A birth certificate, but we didn't create that certificate. The state, the GOVT, created it for us. So they created some paperwork for us we don't know about. And then they play a lot of games with this paperwork and with the finances, and the whole system is quite corrupt. And I'll talk about that in more detail, I think, in the next part in this series. But for now, I just want to identify how the true natural law has been corrupted over time. And this natural law is timeless. This will always be true. The ancient shamans would know this way. On another planet, in another solar system, millions and billions of years ago, there will be tribes and they will follow this. It will be the same natural law. This is the law of creation itself. The unmanifest field of ether, field of chi, the life force, appears in this world into manifestation. It appears through mathematics, the mathematics of growth, and there's a geometry together with that. And then if you work together with this mathematics, you are following the natural law. You are creating things. When you go against it, you're destroying or reducing or cutting it down. And this applies everywhere. This is how the very universe itself works. And I talk about that again in my series, Magical Science. But it goes from the very beginning. The unmanifest field of ether manifests into electromagnetism. And there's an electromagnetism is two aspects of the same field. There's an electric component, a dielectric component, and a magnetic component, a force. And these two components appear in a delay to create a wave, or the magnetic field. And the speed of that delay itself is in direct proportion to the golden ratio. That's how important the golden ratio is. And I have a magnet here. And even the difference between the magnetic field at the North and South Pole, again, is connected to the golden ratio. That is how important that mathematics is. It's fundamental. And this is the natural law, the fundamental natural law of all sentient, self-aware beings. Of all levels of self-awareness. Because at the level of self-awareness is the point where you have a soul, a true soul, a singularity of consciousness, a singularity of spirit, singularity of ether that is holding your body together, organizing the things around you, creating a life, your life. And what we've got now in this system of lawfare is a lot of very bad people, bad people. And these are not just what we think as corrupt politicians, stealing a bit of money on the side, having a few little funny affairs. No, this level is pure evil. The level of evil at the top of this is hard to comprehend. Incredible levels of evil have been perpetrated upon us right now because of this, what's going on. And we need to find a system, another alternative system that can bring us back to this. But if we ourselves follow this and understand this, we can start to see where this is playing games with us. We have to find a way of actually stopping this. So I'm going to talk more and more about this. And again, check the links below. The Sovereign Project is one of the best projects that's linking everyone together. They're building a network, and that's what we need. We need a network of sovereigns who are working towards this project of bringing back the common law for all of us and stopping this corruption. So again, I hope this made sense. Do go back and look at the first lecture if you haven't seen it, and check out my series Magical Science. And do leave me any comments or questions and I will get back to you. And stay tuned for the next lecture in the series coming very soon. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in any of these other videos here.